Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Matt, and today we are brewing a Black IPA. If you like grain to glass videos, make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as there will be more coming in the future. If you've already missed it, I already uploaded a New England IPA grain to glass video on the YouTube channel. That will be in the information section down below. But yeah, we're about to get started on this Black IPA Brew Day. First, we're going to go over the recipe in BIAB 3, and then we can get going on the Brew Day. When creating this recipe, I first designed this as a 5-gallon batch, and then I reduced the size to 3.7 gallons using the scale recipe function in BIAB 3. I have a pretty complex malt bill here because I thought it'd be fun to try in this specialty IPA. So we have some Flaked Rye, we're getting 2 different types of crystal, we're getting our dark SRM from 2 different types of malt. We also have Munich and Citra in here, of course, for the base malt. For the hops, we have Centennial, of course. Centennial is like my go-to hop for IPAs. You're gonna get pine, citrus, floral notes from this. I use Centennial in pretty much all my IPAs. Magnum was my bittering hop. It has a high acid and will hopefully complement the complex malt bill that's behind it. I also added Chinook. Chinook should contribute some herbal and piney notes, which complements IPAs. And then I also added Citra, though the Citra isn't going to be touching the beer during the boil, it's just in the dry hop. Citra is a good dry hop because it provides some fruity, grapefruity, guava, mango characters, so I thought that might be interesting to complement the style as well. For the yeast, we added Wyeast 1332, which is recommended for Black IPAs on their website. It produces a malty and mildly fruity ale with good depth and complexity. So it should be good for the style. And then, of course, the water additions we'll go through in a little bit. So for the starter information, it looks like it's recommending 2 packs as the original gravity estimate is around 1070. So it looks like it's recommending 2 packs because it only provides around 96 billion viable cells in each pack. So we are going to use a starter. So we're going to build a 0.7 liter starter at 1036 to hopefully generate around the 180 billion cells that I need to ferment this properly. For the water chemistry, I wasn't really sure where to go. Since this is a Black IPA, you're going to get malty characteristics from all the dark malt, but also it's an IPA. So I first looked online and looked what other YouTubers were doing with this, and it seemed like most people were building pretty balanced profiles. So I went ahead and built a relatively balanced profile with about 75 ppm sulfate to 100 chloride. So this is actually going to be a little bit more malt forward, but it's overall pretty balanced in the style. So we're going to give this a try, and we can make changes to this in the future batches if we find that this isn't the right way to go about it. Next, we are going to go through the brew day. We first collect 5.5 gallons of strike water, and we plan for a pretty balanced water profile. We heat up strike water to around 155 degrees for a target mash temp of 152. For water chemistry, we collect 3.52 grams of magnesium sulfate, 3.07 grams of calcium carbonate, 1.71 grams of calcium chloride, 0.89 grams of calcium sulfate, 0.93 grams of baking soda. After we make our water additions and the water reaches our strike temp, we mash in. Once we dough in, we need to make sure that we stir for some time to make sure that we break up any dough balls. We then adjust our controller for a mash temp of 152. After 10 minutes, we take our pH reading to see where we're at. It's a little hard to tell where we're at with the pH strips, but it seems like we're close enough to 5.2. After 45-minute mash and a 10-minute mash out, At 170, we press the grains to squeeze out as much liquid as we can. After our mash, we end up with around 4.8 gallons of wort, which was slightly under target. Our pre-boil gravity was around 1053, which was under target by around 6 points. I didn't notice this until going over my notes after brew day because I was drinking with some friends, but we should have added some DME here to self-correct. For our hop schedule, we added 0.5 ounces of Magnum for 60 minutes, 0.4 ounces of Centennial for 20 minutes, along with 0.75 ounces of Chinook for 20 minutes. At the last 15 minutes of the boil, we start running boiling wort through the lines, the chiller, and the pump to sanitize. Lastly, we added 1.1 ounces of Centennial for the last 5 minutes. After waiting the last 5 minutes, we started to run cold water through the plate chiller to start rapidly chilling the wort down to pitching temp around 70 degrees. Once it was chilled, we moved the wort into the fermenter where we collected around 3.2 gallons, which was under target by around 5 gallons. Trub and cooler loss will need to be adjusted in Beersmith for future batches. We next pitched our Wyeast 1332, which we prepared a starter the day before. We then took a gravity reading, which read out to around 14 bricks, which comes out to around 1055, which was under target. This is expected since our pre-boil gravity was off. Next, we aerate the beer using a drill stir stick. This does a great job, and I would recommend this tool to anyone who's in the market. Lastly, we move the beer into the fermentation chamber where we're going to hold around 69 degrees for 2 weeks. After about a week and a half, we added our dry hops, which was around 0.5 ounces of Centennial and 0.75 ounces of Citra. After around 3 to 5 days, we racked the beer into the keg. The final gravity was around 1018. My hydrometer reads 2 points high, so the ABV is around 4.9. Okay, so here we are for the final part of the video to go over notes on the actual beer and then to talk about the Brew Day notes and what went wrong and what went right at the end of the tasting notes. So we can do aroma, appearance, mouthfeel, and flavor first, and then we can go into the Brew Day notes. So for appearance, I would say it's definitely black and you can't really see through it even with a light. It is just very, very dark, which that was the plan, and it's not surprising considering we had a lot of dark malts, high SRM malts in this, and the head is tan color, so pretty much what I was going for this style. For the aroma, I would say it's a very, gotta knock the cat down. I would say it's not very hoppy at all. There's no real hop aroma. I would maybe say slight citrus, maybe a little melon, but it's really subtle. Really what is pungent is the dark malt. You can chocolate, caramel, sweetness, coffee. Chocolate is the real dominant aroma on this beer though, which again isn't surprising considering the malts I used. Next we can go into mouthfeel. Yeah, this has a really, really smooth finish. I would say medium mouthfeel. Yeah, I would say about a medium mouthfeel. Very, very smooth drinking though. And then lastly, we can go into flavor. This definitely has very low hop flavor. There's not a lot of hop flavor. The malt, there's a ton of malt flavor with this. The bitterness is very low up front, but it finishes dry and bitter. You don't really get a lot of the bitter up front. It's all at the back end. It all is the finish. So if you like drier, bitter finish beers, this would definitely be a good beer to brew. Yeah, I would say there's almost the caramel flavor is very subtle. Dark malt is it just tastes very, very dark. It's almost like not even a black IPA. I would even put this closer to the realm of an American stout. I would say that this could if you gave this to someone, you didn't tell them what it was, it would probably be somewhere in between a black IPA and American stout. So it's very, very good. Lastly, I want to go over Brew Day Notes. So I have something written down here that I wanted to talk about. So overall, it was a really good brew day. I actually had a bunch of friends and family over. So we didn't track the numbers as well as I would typically do on a brew day that I did myself, as you know, we're drinking and talking and having a good time. So naturally my numbers were a little off. My pre-boil gravity was off, which means that my SG will be off at the end of the boil. So I did not hit my gravity numbers, which I should have adjusted with DME. I just recorded the refractometer recording, and then I didn't actually punch that into any calculator, so I didn't really know what pre-boil gravity I had. So it was a little off, which is not a problem. It wasn't off by a ton. My finishing volume was off as well. Similar to the last brew, I actually did the New England IPA and the Black IPA very closely together, where I didn't actually look at my notes from the New England IPA before I brewed the Black IPA. So if you're following these in order, you'll probably notice in the New England video I said I'm going to adjust my Beersmith numbers so my final volume is correct. I didn't actually do that for this beer, so naturally the final volume is also off for this. So the next beer I brew, which I've already done and I'm working on, the volumes are actually correct. So the volumes is going to be corrected for future videos. So the volume is definitely off. I needed to adjust the trub and the line loss to help compensate. Lastly, looking back on the recipe, I definitely made this more malt forward with the water profile. Sulfate to chloride. I would probably make sulfate a little bit higher. The idea with a black IPA is you essentially want it to be an IPA but black. You don't want it to be like, you don't really want it to be a stout or a porter when you're drinking it. It should taste like an IPA, but it should look dark. And I would say that's not a fitting description of this beer. I would definitely say that this is a more malt forward IPA leaning towards the American stout, like I mentioned before. But it's still a very, very good beer. And I might make this again, though. Moving forward, I might tune down the malt bill. I'm probably going to only use one dark grain with this next time, and I'm probably going to make it a little bit more simple, not so complex. Like I said, I'm going to bump up the sulfates for next time to make this more IPA focused. And but yeah, and I might just tweak the bittering additions as well. I don't think this has enough bittering additions. It's very low perceived bitterness. You can only really get it at the finish, and it's very dry at the finish. So the finish is good, I would think it is, but up front, I also think it should be more hop forward. So I'm gonna adjust that next time I brew as well. But that really about covers it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and like the channel. There's another brew grain to glass video coming out soon. I'm doing my first lager, so I'm working on that now. The beer's actually lagering in the fridge in the garage right now. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.